Hi, I'm Abby Marinowski, and today I'll be explaining how I went about creating these blocks. Initially, we first got assigned the project to create 3 or more block designs, and so I went about and just created kind of a model with just a little layout of different ideas and things that I wanted to try on here. Then I went through and looked at things that I'm really interested in. You can do different stuff, different classes, subjects, music, movies, different things like that, and then just make each block about a different version of that. So I was really interested in history and decided that if I went and looked into historical art, I could create my 3 different blocks. So first I created a page for each block. I find it in here. And so I went out and picked different time periods and picked a different culture from that time period. So each side of the block is a different time period. So on here you can see different pictures, different ideas for things that work in the cavemen era. So I picked a selection of different pictures and from different cultures, and then picked one picture from each culture to go on each side. So then the pictures on here are the ones that I used for my sides and developed the idea farther to then create this first block. And so on one side we have like a cave drawing, another we have handprints, the third is kind of more of an African style tribal kind of carving that they would have done, and then on this side we have of course cave dwellings, which are very popular. On the top I labeled my time period on there and I tried to make it really clean cut. So that's the initial block, and by using different glazes and analyzing it, I allowed to make it realistic to follow, of course, the colors on here, while also making it a little more creative. On the top, I decided to go for light blue to cause that kind of juxtaposition between all of these dark gray colors. So I thought that was a little bit fun. But before I get into any more of my blocks, when I first developed the idea, I wanted to actually make 5 blocks, and I made these models, which were tremendously helpful because you go through, develop each idea on each page for each block, and then create your model for it, which initially solves a lot of technical problems because I knew I wanted to carve them in, so I made this little guy, and the hands were easy. This was a bit of a different idea, so I noticed that this was kind of a problem, so on the actual one, I made it come out rather than go in. And this was strange, so I didn't do it again. So models are super helpful because it allows you to see what will and what will not work. On my second block, which was the next time period, which is actually this giant head, I was super excited to really go in depth and in detail for this one. So this is a really cool time period. You have Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, the Indus River Valley. Doesn't matter, but I think it's cool. And they have a lot of really beautiful in-depth art, and so I wanted to take that and make it my own while still being correct. And so that's the fun part about this project, is that you get to reflect and acknowledge something that you really enjoy while also making it your own. So if you do a sport, you can be really abstract with it, or whatever you're doing, you can go hard as long as it's still recognizable. So on this one, my little model looks pretty similar to the full-sized one. Made my little head and then went through and carved that in and had all the different sides. And they're time consuming, but they're very helpful because it lets you solve your problems before you get to the big block, which is a lot harder to figure out things. So this structure was actually, I built each small side and then attached it like you would for the rest of the block. So it took a little longer, but I think it was much easier than trying to carve it in. The big head I made entirely separately and then glued on later. I was very happy with how that guy turned out. It was super exciting, got to play with colors a little bit, make this one a detailed graven. I personally would have gone back through and made the colors more distinct so it popped out more, but otherwise it was nice. This guy is actually hollow all the way through. That was pretty fun. And then on my third block, I went with the Romans and the Japanese and the Persians. So on here, you can obviously tell what this is. This is really fun. I did run into an issue of shrinkage. For when you're making your blocks, if you're adding things on the outside, be careful that you do it all at the same time, because the clay does, as it dries, it shrinks a little bit. So these pillars actually cracked significantly since I did them at a different time, which turned out looking pretty cool, but initially caused some problems. On one of my other sides, I made half of a helmet and then attached it in just with the glazing. So when you fire it, the glaze will melt and attach it for you, which is easier if you don't want to use glue. On this side, I made, he's a little dark, but I made this little lion man on the inside. He's Japanese. The color turned out a little dark on there too. Wish I had lightened him up a bit, but that was another, made it separately and then glued it in. So as you can tell, the block design of this is a little different as well. Like, of course, it turns into a block when you're done, but I actually did a dividing line on the inside rather than two on the outside. So that's always fun. Keep in mind, you can always mess with your block shape as long as it turns out being kind of a block. Add things on the outside like the lion head on the previous one, or like this top section up here. Once again, I did the dates on top to keep it consistent. So in the end, my 3 blocks I think turned out really nicely. But initially I actually wanted to do 5 blocks. That was my whole idea, was to keep the time periods going all the way through. And I made 5 models actually. And you can conveniently, on clay that is fired but not glazed, you can actually write on it in pencil to let yourself know what else is going on. So I also made these tiny little models of like the little Greek helmet and the little lion, and this helped me actually because initially I wanted to make a whole helmet, but decided a half helmet would be much easier to manage. And here as well, the color combination was a little bit of a fun idea. Instead of just doing it either metal or corroded green kind of metal, I actually went through and made it look like an ancient Greek pot, which were the classic orange and black. So that was kind of a combination of ideas, and I suggest that you try and mess with colors more rather than making it all exactly how it's supposed to look. So the 4th and 5th block that I did not make but wanted to looked like this. It was going to be pretty fun, but I actually ran out of time pretty significantly, so keep that in mind when you're planning, that you leave yourself enough time. Like, I made mine more complicated, so it was good that I wound up only making 3. If you make them a little more simple, like perfect blocks with just designs on the outside, go ahead and try to make 5. Really stretch your idea and trying to get the most out of it. Initially, I really wanted to do like each block, 1 block per culture, but that would have been almost a little boring in my mind, just leaving it like 1 entirely Egyptian block. It's kind of so I wanted to learn something while I was doing this, so I really did a lot of research to try and find during this time period what else in the world was going on, because I didn't know that the Japanese were so advanced, while the Romans and the Persians I'd never even heard of before. So it was a lot of learning experience for me, and I really hope that you can take advantage of this project and learn something with yours as well. All right, thank you.